So hello everyone, I hope we are live. It says live up there. Thanks a lot for joining us here today. This is meant to conclude the code week, the three-day code week. We are having what we plan to be an informal kind of informal fireside chat. No fireside here by me, but there see a variety of backgrounds here. We will be discussing the future of AI and big data. I know this sounds a bit generic and vague. This is what, at least in our line of work, is a lot being talked about these days. So we hope that it would be a topic of interest for all of you. So thanks a lot for joining us here today. The slides are nothing too formal, just some questions that help drive the meeting, and that's that. So should we go on? And Mr. Moradi trying to join us. So Mr. Moradi, if you can hear us, just say hi and we'll take it from there. Very briefly, or as brief as you'd like, let us present ourselves. With us here today is Miss Matina, Thomaidou. Matina, mic over to you. Who are you? What are you doing? What's your profile?
Hi, Dimitri. First of all, thank you so much for this really nice opportunity to discuss on these hot topics, I would say. I'm the VP and Head of Data Science at DataSeed, which is now part of Verb Group. We are on the sector, let's say, of programmatic advertising, focusing on leveraging contextual signals to optimize our advertisers' campaigns. And again, really happy to be with you today.
Great, thanks. From what I remember, you have a long history in machine learning plus advertising, so you kind of know the domain very well. Then we have Mr. Moradi. Mr. Moradi, can you hear us? I guess not. So whenever you can join, just say hi and just jump in. Next, Mr. Harris, Papageorgiou. Hello, Mr. Harris. Some words about you.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for inviting me. I'm very glad to be part of this, on this event, to participate. I am a research director at Athena Research Center, one of the research centers in Greece that we have dedicated to computer science. I've been working on artificial intelligence for the last 3 or 4 decades and leading a team in AI and language technology specifically. So I've been following the whole stream of developments on big data, large language models, teaching in various postgraduate courses in universities, and also co-founding some of the spin-off companies that spin out of Athena Research Center.
So that sounds like a lot of experience in AI. I'm sure you've been there when people were saying AI is dead, right? So you've been through that era, I guess. Okay, it's not dead after all. And then we have Pavlos Mitsoulis. Hello, Pavlos, joining us from the UK.
Yeah, from London. Yeah, it would be really nice if there was a fireside here. It's not so warm.
That's right.
Hey everyone, I'm really excited to be here, and thanks for the invite. I'm an associate director of ML engineering at King, part of Microsoft. We are the creators of Candy Crush, so probably most of you have played the game. And I lead the ML platform teams, like helping data scientists and ML scientists to deploy, train, and tune their models. I have experience with ML platforms, ranking, search problems, recommender systems, and NLP. But I feel like a dinosaur because I used to do n-grams, 10 years ago with NLP.
I remember n-grams, and working on experiments like tracking whether bigrams or trigrams are better. Yeah, thanks, Pavlos. So that last name, that list would be me. So I'll be moderating the panel and expressing my opinions here and there. I am working with Elastic. I'm a senior engineering manager there, leading the core machine learning team, which means we take care of, like Pavlos said, tuning training models and then caring about their life in the Elastic stack. So how someone can run inference against those models and how those models can be utilized in a distributed manner that Elastic, Elastic is a distributed database, data store. So yeah, I do have some experience from the past. So I have a PhD in machine learning. Like we used to call that field data mining back then. So my experience mostly lies with databases, I would say. My past mostly lies with databases, but with machine learning and AI over the last years. Okay, so let's kick this off. First question. So I drafted those questions. If you feel they're boring, just, you can have your own questions to discuss. So first question is, I will be passing the mic around in a random manner. How do you see the integration of AI with database technologies? That's kind of biased because I like databases. Evolving in the next 5 years, what are the key trends to watch? And a keyword coming to mind is vector databases, maybe these days. So first of all, Mr. Harris, what would you have to say about that?
Yeah, there are a lot of nice developments in the field of databases regarding the AI intervention here. So we have seen that we have been witnessing several advances in the last 2 decades, from the relational databases back in the 90s, which are still the mainstream out there, to Elasticsearch and indexing services, very efficient and effective mechanism of how to retrieve data, textual data or non-structured data, starting from Lucene up to Solar and then to Elasticsearch nowadays. The use of AI, how this was influenced these trends in the sense of now even in the Elasticsearch you can use embedding vectors and represent the different entities or objects that you want to search for by using these numerical representations instead of categorical. These are very significant advances that we have been witnessing. In addition, we have seen also the trends coming from structured data to non-structured data. This is an area that we anticipate to see a lot of things happening in the future, starting from document stores like MongoDB in the last 2 decades, to vector databases where the document store is transformed to something that can be used directly with foundation models or fine-tuned language models, where we have this paradigm like the retrieval augmented system, the RAG modules that can be exploited before the activation of the large language models and use the material in order to avoid hallucinations, the well-known problem in language models. So there is a lot of things happening out there. This coupling, this tight or soft coupling of AI with databases has a lot of things to deliver. And in the future, there would be what we see in the industry is a tighter connection of all these well-defined and well-established products in databases with AI. And this is an area that I see that there are many companies that are active.
Thanks a lot, Mr. Harris. So since you mentioned the hallucination aspect of the LLMs, I'm by no means an expert on LLMs, but what I know is that it is and it will continue being challenging to actually measure how much an LLM will be hallucinating. So this is an active area of research, if I'm not mistaken. Is that right, Pavlos? So do you have more experience on that than me?
Yeah, I'm not an expert either. I think, you have to be working probably in OpenAI or, Anthropic to be an expert. But, from my experience so far using LLMs at work and, in side projects, yeah, it's really hard to measure that. Like, I think there has been some efforts, with some reference data sets, measuring the hallucination and then, the performance. Yeah, I think that it's going to take lots of years to find the solution there. That's why it makes sense to customize the LLMs, if you like, fine tune them, or do lots of prompt engineering for your specific use cases. When it comes to,
is it where databases come in play, or so? How do you see the integration?
Yeah, that's a good question. I was thinking about that, and I was thinking specifically about, like, not only about text data, but like, videos, images, you name it. Yeah, I'm not sure if we need databases that need to store this kind of data, or we can store the prompts in the databases that will on the fly generate, let's say, videos and images. So this is something that, I'm still contemplating. If we really nail down the prompt engineering, maybe now you don't need to store a video, but you can store just the prompt that generates that video, and then, the model that is used, the version of that model, etc. Maybe I'm wrong, and we need databases that need to store different types of data.
Yeah, I hope we will continue to be there to store data in databases. But yeah, Matina, what's your take on that?
So I would borrow the words of Jan LeCun when he's being asked such a question. He's like, okay, this is complete speculation. I'm going to be very open. It's a complete speculation. But I would mention something that I'm seeing from an industry that it's heavily based on quite, I would say, numerical type of features, numerical type of data. So we have lots of processes around data exploration, around feature extraction, feature engineering, even before going into the actual model, even before going into the model development, model deployment. So we are leveraging the databases, we're leveraging whatever kind of structures we have to retrieve the data through ETL processes, for example. And there is in many different kinds of, I think, roles, the SQL type of languages in order to use these ETL processes. What I believe we might see, it's a kind of a change in the easiness, in the accessibility of producing SQL queries, of maybe having a different kind of environment, or a type of a different NLP, whatever process to produce these SQL queries, and a little bit of more frictionless processes in the first type of steps, even before going to the model types.
Okay, great. Yeah, another way to think about that. So I didn't think about that before, about this viewpoint. Okay, let's continue. Any more comments on that, or should we continue to the next topic?
Yeah, if I may add to this,
yeah, sure.
Dimitri, I mean, I second what Matina said. So we have, I mean, there are a lot of tools that can produce from text to SQL queries. So we are very close to automate this process and have agents on top of this that can automatically trigger and execute these services through SQL execution. So this is a nice feature, but also it's a very good collaboration between AI and databases. The other thing is that even we have also been witnessing several developments in the graph databases with Neo4j, and then again, these very good, well-established products have also made a lot of steps into incorporating AI techniques. So the idea about hallucinations, although this is not the right wording, it is confabulations, as we say in science, instead of hallucinations. The idea of how to deal with that, it is mostly coming from using knowledge graphs or fact databases or data that are stored somehow, and this will guide the LLMs to do the job. When I say guide, I mean that they will provide the material, and the LLMs should be confined to use exhaustively this material in order to answer the question.
Mm-hmm. Great, thanks, Mr. Harris. By the way, I was thinking, since you mentioned, back to the first question, since you mentioned the SQL, so I couldn't help but thinking how powerful and forever there this kind of querying, this way of querying the data is. So like it was invented when? It was the 80s, or for that? I think it was the 80s. And still we are trying, and in my line of work, so at Elastic, we are trying to build a language that will behave like the SQL, not SQL, tailored to the Elasticsearch needs, but still this declarative way of querying the data and triggering even procedures is still here and will remain with us for the years to come. And it's such a simple and sick way of thinking about the data.
Can I add 3 more dimensions to that? Yeah, the previous question one.
Yep.
Yeah, I was thinking about also some additional dimensions, how to look at the integration of AI and database with database technologies. I think I see a trend of co-locating data with ML models. I think, for example, there's a startup called PostgreSML. You have BigQuery ML and GCP, where essentially you literally in SQL you specify the training logic or the inference logic, and I think that's very useful for small and medium enterprises, where you don't have so many engineers, you don't want to have a complex architecture, and you don't have like so many compliance rules to follow. Or essentially, you want to experiment it very quickly, train, tune a model, deploy it out there without having, to have like 5 more repositories, 6 more technologies on the side. Yeah, that's one aspect. And the second one is like for bigger enterprises, there's a need of how to quickly move the data from transactional databases to databases like Elastic, DynamoDB, in data lakes, in order to train models, on scale, and that's really crucial. Speed there for many industries is very crucial. And the third thing is that I think there is also a trend to kind of simplify the tech stack by many companies. So you don't want to have 10 databases, but you want to have 2-3 databases. Yeah, I think the last 5, Matina is smiling. Last decade, I think many big tech companies were promoting their technologies as open source projects, and we were adapting them. But we realized that you need like lots of people to use them, lots of expertise. So lots of problems at the end of the day.
Yeah, the bigger the data gets, nothing is trivial, right? So this is what you mentioned, Pavlos, just taking the data from the transactional database to the analytical one, even just that is an unsolved problem right now with the rise of the data, because we will always have more and more data to record and analyze, and we will always have this need of taking this more data into account, add more data to the training set, increase the dimensions. Maybe I'm not sure about the last increase the dimensions part, but we will always say, don't lose the value of those new data. So we need them. So yes, it's a kind of unsolved currently problem. So all corporations, I guess, have this problem: how to move the data around. Not a trivial task. Okay, let me move to the next one. So with the rise of AI, since this is called a code week, so targeted at software engineers. So with the rise of AI, how do you envision the future roles of software engineers and architects transforming? And I would say, will AI take our jobs? So that's a question that many people in other departments ask, like marketing, like sales, like things that we think can be automated. So the question here is, can code, software engineering, and software architecture be automated? And to what extent, if yes? So Matina, what could be your take on that?
Yeah. A couple of months ago, there was a discussion with Scott Chacon, the co-founder of GitHub in OpenConf. And what he was explaining, it was that the current status of things in architecture and in coding, and the way that human beings are coding, is that we have frameworks that are quite complex, interconnected files. And why? What is the reason why? Because it was designed, all this system, for humans, by humans, in order to write documents in text editors. And the number one question for how roles are going to change when we're talking about software engineers and software architects, I will mention also about the part that you said for marketing and other more creative departments. So the question is, what might the system look like where humans were not needed to write or understand all the code? So it's a very, very tough question. But at the end of the day, all of these are just tools serving a purpose, meaning the software engineers and the software architects might become more strategic and use all these systems in quite different ways of connection to execute. AI will take over execution. The other thing for software engineers, it's that they might be better in understanding and collaborating with cross-functional partners from departments of machine learning, from data science departments, because they will have better understanding of the different roles. In parallel, of course, with transformation of those roles. So I believe they will become all of these personas more strategic. The AI will be to serve their purposes. It's a whole different discussion, a whole different conversation for creative roles, and I mean creative, not by creative in terms of creativity, but for the production of things in terms of marketing, of maybe writers or product marketing, for example, managers. Again, it could be a little bit of a different conversation there. Maybe they need to transform their skills, to do a little bit of upskilling in certain areas. But again, I'm of the optimistic ones that I believe all these things are just basically very enhanced tools to serve a very specific purpose. For software engineers, the purpose is the efficiency, is building a very robust and stable system. But again, the criteria, the initial direction, at least for the years to come, maybe the next decade, it's going to be still from humans serving humans.
Okay, great, Matina. Mr. Harris, what's your take on that?
Yeah, I think that there is no such a risk. I totally agree with Matina on this. I think that in the future to come, the role of software developers and architects solutions will be strengthened and expanded a lot, covering many new aspects as there is a blossoming of tools and services, AI-driven services out there. This will complicate things, and the architects should be aware of those developments in order to exploit and leverage the potential of those tools in their projects. There is a clear need for more people in the area. There is a clear need for more diverse teams, multidisciplinary teams. What we have seen in the past is that there is a lack of women, for example, in AI and computer science. There was a study in UK last year that it is about 15% of women participating in STEM, in STEM, mathematics, computer science, and so on, engineering schools, in disciplines, in universities. So we need to remedy this by having people from different ethnicities, from different cultures, and from different gender to participate in the development of those tools, because this has a very big influence in our lives. And this has impact with legal and ethical issues that also that possibly might be a solution to that. So the future is brilliant. It's very bright. I think that we will see more people getting into this, following these career paths, and at the same time, the role of those people will be expanded in various aspects, in various dimensions to cover the contemporary needs.
Great, thanks, Mr. Harris. And Pavlos, your take?
Yeah, I think Matina gave a really good intro here. I think I'll focus more on the people that are starting their careers right now or are in the beginning, and I'll be more like I'll speak about the details. I think staff engineers, principal engineers, we'll need more of them right now. People that can communicate with other teams, understand how the systems work, how to integrate. By the way, we have made so much progress in AI, but integration is still the biggest problem in computer science. So, for example, we've all been in situations where an engineer will tell you, "Oh, my system cannot communicate with the other system because there is a firewall, and I have to raise a Jira ticket to the security team." That's the classic thing. I think for the junior engineers, things will change. You won't have this kind of environment where you have a very well-scoped task that you need to achieve. You're not going to have that you're going to be essentially, your success will be measured if you deliver that or not. So I think apart from knowing the details, you need to know how to connect the dots early on in your career. And that's a big difference right now. Because, for example, I have no idea about front-end engineering, and right now, using Claude or GPT, I really can create a website. And 10 years ago, you needed, some more like junior engineers to do that. So now I think the bar is higher, but I think people have more tools from AI to do more things early in their career. So, I think, it will reshape the whole, the roles, it will reshape, but I think they will be more creative and more strategic, and I think more fun at the end of the day.
So Yanis, one of the attendees in the comment section, says AI won't replace humans, but humans with AI will replace humans without AI. And I think it's what you all said is that people will need to know how to work with AI, because even in this creative role, Matina, I think, I think engineering is creative, but I got what you meant with the distinction with marketing departments. So I think this you all agreed here that engineers will need to learn how to work with AI. I would my two cents on that would be that, I mean, just from my personal experience and trying not to feel like a dinosaur, like Pavlos mentioned in the beginning, I tried to play a bit with GitHub Copilot and such other tools, and I felt it was really boring. I didn't like it. I preferred writing the code myself. But probably not in the areas where I didn't have a clue, like you said, Pavlos, that I don't know anything about front end. Let the LLM give me a first version of something, and then I can work on it. But it needs some skill to know, and some energy and some dedication to really understand how to work with the tool, with the LLM-based tool. It's not that easy, in my opinion. Yeah. It will take some time for people to adjust their skills.
Exactly, and it will give you, you know, for example, you get auto-generated code and suddenly imports a library that doesn't exist, right?
Yeah. It hasn't happened to me, but yeah, I get that it may happen. Yeah. Okay. Let's go to the next one. So this is a big topic. Ethical use of AI within database management and without. I mean, let's focus on AI and ethics. A lot of data go in. Some huge or not that huge models come out of the training and the tuning and micro tuning and quantization and all those different techniques. What about ethics there? This is a topic not that much engineering focused, but when I take some more data sets to throw into my model, I have to care about what kind of data and what kind of bias I may be introducing to the model without me explicitly knowing. So yeah, Pavlos, what about ethics?
Yeah, it's a big topic. It's challenging because, like, most, you know, us, for example, you know, we're some senior people. I think that we haven't been taught anything about ethics in tech, in engineering, when we were studying. It was all about optimizing some sort of metric, you know, learning math and all this stuff. So I think, you know, it's good that it's emerging right now. It's amazing. Because without knowing, we may you know, cause some inconvenience or harm some specific part of our society. The thing is that the other challenge here is that it depends on the type of business. Let's say, you know, you are the creator of Wordle, this, you know, word puzzle game. You know nothing about the users, right? You just the cookie or whatever it is. And let's say that it's successful, and you want to, you know, maybe for some people use ML and give some extra moves depending on their interaction with the game. I mean, there, I don't think you can harm anyone, right, with AI. But once you start having more like data about demographics, or like more sensitive use cases, like, you know, giving an approval for a mortgage, this is where, you know, you need to understand the implication. And obviously, I think it's going to become more bureaucratic when it comes to deploying these models. But I think it's from the legal perspective, but I think we need to be more vocal as that we develop these models, how to do it, and, you know, and essentially speeding up the process, but at the same time still having the safeguard rails there.
Mm-hmm. I have some questions, but I will follow up after Matina and Mr. Harris give their take. So Mr. Harris. What about ethics? Is it something? Is it, by the way, this? Is it an active research area for you and the research center, or some?
Yeah, this is a very challenging area. There is a lot of vagueness. The landscape is vague, and we are expecting a lot of things to see in this area. So there are a lot of aspects related to ethical and legal issues. So one thing is bias, but bias comes into different flavors. So, for example, there is bias, intrinsic bias, we call it. And intrinsic bias is all it is hidden in the training data that the ChatGPT and open and foundation models have been trained on. So it depends on the data, but also it depends on the teams, because the teams influence the way the models, these foundation models like GPT, have been trained on. So the choice of optimization techniques, of architectures, and even the construction of the team that is behind the development of ChatGPT and all these foundation models is very critical. This is one flavor of bias. The other is that all the fine-tuned models or the augmented models that have been based on ChatGPT or foundation models also add on top of this the additional bias, which we call it adaptation bias. And this makes the things more difficult, because it's very difficult to trace this adaptation bias. At the end of the day, this culminates to an experience from the users as harm, in different, again, flavors like representational bias or performance disparities or abuse or toxicity or different stereotypes for different communities and so on. These are different are things that if you put it in the puzzle, it makes a very dynamic process of how to address all these issues, because in the open community, in the open software, the models that are built on top of Llama 2 or of open models, all these inherit the intrinsic bias of those foundation models, but there is no way to go back. So the development team of a foundation model is not aware not only of the adaptation bias, but also they are not aware of exchanges and the logs and the messages that the users have communicated to the fine-tuned models. So this is a very, very, very difficult task. The other thing is that how can we eliminate bias? So there is a lot of in scientific literature and a lot of things in the academics of how to deal with bias, although this is also a philosophical problem that goes back to cancel culture and how to incorporate multiculturalism and identity politics in the way that you treat different cultural groups and different ethnicities. So is there a solution to that? I'm afraid that there is not for the time being. And the same happens of how to use AI techniques in order to monitor the LLMs and the AI systems, and how to prevent automatically abuse, things that we see, for example, in Meta, of how to deal with addressing disinformation and misinformation in Facebook and other social media. Is AI able to trace all these fake news or fake profiles of abuse? For the time being, this is not a success story, and there are a lot of things to do, but manual intervention and manual techniques in tracking misuse are definitely needed. The other dimension in ethical discussion is about the environmental footprint of all those developments. So there is a lot of energy that needs to be consumed in order to build these models. And this has several side effects. The open community and the academic community is trying to put a lot of effort on how to train models with low carbon intensity in low carbon intensity regions, or how to deploy smaller and more efficient models that have a good performance, or at least the same performance with big players' foundation models. Other practices here as how to use distillation or mixed precision or different architectures and lower the burden of development. Last but not least, there is also IPR, data privacy issues, because even the big players do not disclose the data that have been used in training the ChatGPT, for example. So everyone scrapes or crawls the web, but this is copyrighted material and protected. And so things are very blurred here, because even the EU AI Act does not take a clear position to those aspects. So if you consider all these factors, on top of this, you have to take, we are very far from having AI systems taking decisions on sensitive domains like healthcare or governmental entities that use AI in very critical decisions like climate change or migration and so on. And finally, there is this concentration effect where there is that increases inequality due to centralization of all these technologies to a few players. This is what we call it in science homogenization effect. And we need to deal with it somehow by opening the landscape so that more developers, more SMEs, more startups can be activated can be active in the field. By not relying too much on ChatGPT and the big players' technology.
Thanks a lot, Mr. Harris. You listed a bunch of, several topics. Make me feel a bit pessimistic on that on this front. And models, LLMs, and AI will become bigger, but their ethics will become worse, I guess. So it seems it's not easy, and we are far from solving it. So, Matina?
What I wanted to say is that Harris covered literally, I think, the foundations, the fundamental ethical issues. I really liked in the previous conversation as well the perspective and the issue of diversity, of people who are actually developing and taking part in the development of these systems. I totally hear your point as well, Dimitris, that if we listen to all of these challenges, all of these problems, we will become pessimists because the problems are really, really big. And someone might say, okay, where are the solutions? I will just add a little bit of positivity in terms of possible solutions and what solutions are underway for certain of these problems. Again, disclaimer: with great power, great responsibility. Meaning, the human beings are the ones that they need to solve all these issues. So, from a theoretical, by design, aspect, we have the issues of the bias, of course, the toxicity, the hallucination. There are efforts from example, from Google Perspective API, from NVIDIA, because you mentioned earlier the hallucinations, that they're trying to tackle through the power of communities and the power of feedback these problems. For example, with some reviewers giving some scores for a certain model, if it is something toxic or not, fine-tune thresholds. If it is given a certain context, something as biased as it's expected or not expected. But I'd like to point out two of the issues that we mentioned earlier. The privacy issue is right now the number one, even before the Gen AI stuff, when machine learning and AI did the boom back in the millennium, in the advertising industry. So you have the problem of the data privacy, the signals. The users are, like Pavlos mentioned, playing a game, are using a certain app, are using a dating app. They're staying this amount of seconds, this amount of sessions, this amount of depth within the app. And you're taking all the signals. You might have also, as an auctioneer, as a big platform, some other third-party entities in this ecosystem. And you have the issue of I have all this data, I can actually leverage it as I want without giving, to anyone the transparency and the visibility of how their data are being used. So there are right now initiatives going in the industry to change that. The first big player on that was Apple with the SCAN network, where they introduced the notion of, look, I'm going to give to the people the power of saying, no, I don't want to be tracked into this level. I know that maybe the answer I'm going to say it's not very relevant, but okay, this is, you have my okay to that, let's say. And it changes also the mentality of the advertisers, the mentality of the business, the mentality of the industry. And they're making, for example, Google, with the Google Privacy Sandbox initiative, to follow them. So they're giving, the example. And this is something very crucial. I think all of us, we have the responsibility to give the good example and have followers to follow these paradigms, let's say. The last thing that concerns me a lot, and this is where I see we need to find solutions, and I haven't seen so far some good ones. It's only to the critical evaluation and minds of the human beings whenever they see that. The notion of deep fakes. We might see deep fakes of politicians saying something, deep fakes of very popular people advising about a certain, let's say, direction. I'm very concerned on that. A very, very big topic. And this is where I believe we need to become a little bit more, all of us, with upskilling, not only the technical skills, but what we consume from the products of AI.
So my previous question on how we can measure hallucination was more toward was aimed to be a bit more generic on how can we measure, whatever output AI has. For example, can we use AI to understand that something is a deep fake and not real? Probably yes, to some extent. But then not again 100%. So I guess that false positives and false negatives are still there. And yeah, I totally share the concerns of you all. So Matina, you started with a positive vibe, then with your last sentence again made me more pessimistic. So I'm a user of Reddit, casual user of Reddit. Next time I will go in there and write something. I mean, I know it's a toxic place, whatever, but next time I will go there and write something, I will have in mind that, this data will be used. I don't know how, and I don't know by whom. So yeah, you entered with a negative vibe. Again, I'm a pessimist. Thanks all. You listed a lot of concerns. I think this was a great conversation, and I'm only moving forward just because I think there is more to the ethics, to the AI ethics to discuss. I'm only moving forward to change the vibe mostly. So AI and advancements in data analysis. So what implication does this combination? I mean, AI, data analysis, AI and data. What implication does this have for business relying on big data? We mentioned some of them. We mentioned some of them before with the challenges of moving the data around, challenges with handling the data. Is there anything more to that, Matina?
Certainly. So the thing is that from 2022, after this buzz of ChatGPT and Gen AI, we are talking about these buzzwords, big data, and now we see a revolution of big data, whereas in fact, big data and machine learning, they are already being used for more than 15, 20 years in industries, right? So one of the industries that it's relying in literally big data, it's advertising. And there, the fundamental ways of dealing with that, it's machine learning. So it's something that it's business as usual for this industry. No major thing unexpected. Where I see though the implications, it's that all these things, they're going to generate completely, at the end of the day, different systems. How feasible is to follow the rules of these systems? And we are not talking, I think, enough in the fora that we are going and all these conversations about the fact that we have a potential, but we are talking about industries and business. What about the actual revenue generation? What about the cost cutting? What about sustainability, like Harris mentioned earlier? So there are three major factors that go beyond the software engineering aspect of it, the algorithmic aspect of it. It's about the resources, the hardware resources, the issues that we might find as roadblocks because, I don't know, we might have another pandemic or a big war going on. I advise the audience to read also the book, The Chip War from Chris Miller.
So Pavlos is nodding. Sorry, what's the book again?
Chip War.
Chip War.
Yeah, it's about Silicon Valley and about the chips and about, let's say, the Russians and the Chinese, how they tried to go into the world of transistors and all of that. And it's about thinking more on the economics aspect of it, not so much the algorithms. Imagine that Jan LeCun, back in the 80s, he had already there the neural networks ready. He had already there the algorithms that could change the world. It's just that till the 2002, 2003, we didn't have NVIDIA with GPUs, so we couldn't actually leverage it at the extent that ideally we want to leverage.
Sorry to interrupt, Matina, and it's still very costly, right? So it's not something that, right now everyone can employ AI, can employ machine learning without any significant cost. It is still very costly, right? So
exactly. And the last thing that I want to add on this, it's what Harris mentioned earlier, that it's about, of course, economics. It's about power and politics at the same time. If this is on the hands of very, very specific players, very, very specific entities and companies, and it's not very, open to more communities, I believe we are going to have a world where we could not easily double check if something is a fact or not, double check if the business are going to the right direction in terms of, for example, of sustainability, because we will not have the level of transparency that we want. So I believe all these factors will definitely go to help and support the expansion of leveraging big data. But again, I want to remind to people that all of us, we need to stay closer to these fields, just because we have a responsibility as well on, what's the end cause at the end of the day of all these big players.
Great, thanks, Matina. So cost is a major cost, and sustainability, I wrote down, is a major implication for businesses. What's your take on that, Pavlos?
Yeah, I agree, and also, Chip War is a great book. It's really short, and it gives a really good sense of the whole supply chain, from tools for cutting chips, where they are made, etc. Yeah, when I was by the way, when I was reading that question, I was thinking also about tools for doing data analysis. you know, feature engineering, data engineering, you know, visualization, sharing insights.
Go ahead and list. I mean, it's informal chat.
Yeah, I think many of these like tasks will be automated, or you know, we're gonna have AI tools where we're gonna expedite the data analysis. Like for example, how many times you wanted to plot something with matplotlib in the past, and every single time you had to Google how to do this thing. Yeah, it's insane. And now, you know, potentially you could just open a Jupyter notebook. You'll say, okay, here's my data. I want you to visualize that in a bar chart or whatever it is, and then boom, already done. By the way, there is a nice Jupyter plugin. I think it's called Zen AI or something like that. Yeah, also feature engineering. I think, you know, as we're moving towards like other types of data and, you know, and LLMs, I don't think many people may say that feature engineering is not important, but I think it's still. And this is an area where, yeah, I think that it's kind of neglected and boring.
Is it Pavlos, or I mean, yeah, it was boring. I agree, but is it still important? Doesn't the AI figure out itself what features it can create?
I think the same phrase still stands: garbage in, garbage out.
Yeah.
So it's not just, oh, I'm gonna scrape, you know, these kind of websites. I'm gonna give them, you know, I'm gonna use the OpenAI SDK, and then automatically get, you know, a result. You still have, many times you have to go through manually through this data. You may need people do that for you. I think we you know, the part of like manual curation of data is not something that we think about, but it's massive. Yeah, that's my take right now on this.
So manual, I could take from that manual curation and some giving the data some love before using the data is still needed. And Matina seems to agree with that. I have a question in the comments by Alexandros, but which is, I mean, all those things are kind of related. But let's tackle that in a bit. So the question, so to prepare is whether the LLMs will have logical reasoning in the future. It's kind of related, but let's hear the foundational issues probably by Harris, because your previous answers had us thinking a lot more. So Harris, what is your take on this current one?
Yeah, for the time being, they do not. So, I mean, there is also a lot of buzz about it. So the foundation models.
Sorry, I mixed everything up. Sorry, I'm about moderator. So you mean about the logical reasoning, right? Or about the question we see here in front of us? I froze, or Mr. Harris frozen for me? Matina, Pavlos, can you hear me?
Yes. I think Harris. Maybe.
Harris. Okay. So yeah, let's wait for a bit. But yeah, what you mentioned, Pavlos, about manually going through the data, I really believe in that, and had me thinking of what Matina mentioned earlier about the power of communities, tagging and label the data. It's kind of two different sides of the same coin. So some people working with the data before we built the magic thing called LLM or whatever, and some people dealing with what the magic thing does. So I worked in the past with user-generated content a lot, and we always were trying to get people write more for our platform. I won't be advertising the platform, but you know, we had more. We wanted to get people help us more, and what we found out back then, in research was that the number one factor for getting people give you, tag the data, for example, mark the data for biased content or whatever. The number one factor, according to research, was that we should just give people understand that they are helping the community, that they're helping the greater good. Monetary incentives didn't work because that was leading to getting garbage signals for user generated data. Giving the community the sense that they're helping the next one was the number one factor. So I totally believe that having the community out there tag and tell us that your LLM is sexist or racist or whatever is a really powerful tool, because I don't really believe that, pessimist in me, but I don't really believe that a model or an algorithm can reach the 100% of unbiased machine learning algorithm. So I totally agree with what you said, Matina, back there. So since Haris is offline, let's chat a bit on this ad hoc question. So Alexandros asked, here's Haris again, cliffhanger. No worries.
Oh, yeah, I lost the connection.
No worries, Haris. So AI and data analysis, and what implication does it have for businesses? Over to you. What's your take on AI and implications on businesses for data analysis tasks?
Yeah, as we discussed, a lot of issues, a lot of factors that influence this area of businesses. So we need to consider the costs of integrating AI solutions to business. Apart from the startup ecosystem in the United States and Korea and Singapore and China. China is far ahead on this in AI due to many reasons. In Europe, we are very skeptical how to integrate AI in our businesses. So the expectations is that in the near-term future that we will see a lot of B2B connections. There is a demand on how to integrate AI internally, or how to leverage all the resources that a company has. So a company might have, it has a CRM and ERP. It also has some good data in textual format. So some knowledge through descriptions or manuals or whatever. These assets are not exploited to the extent that the companies would like to see. So the AI can be a solution to that by integrating all these resources and the tools that a company has internally in order to provide very good quality services to their operators, not to the customers, but to the operators. This is one area that we will see a lot of things happening in this year, within this year. The other is that in other areas, it is in some areas there is a fast integration of AI, like in materials or nanotechnology or textiles, or in energy, for example, where we see a lot of machine learning and deep learning approaches in the digital. This is actually reflects the digitization of those industries, which it is something that the European Commission would like to see. In other areas, like in healthcare or in justice or in food safety, in nutrition, for example, a lot of things are happening in academics, in research, but not yet to be seen in industry at a large scale. So I think that people, business people, are very skeptical of how to integrate it. And in terms of customers, it seems that it is most like a natural language interface. So people, the customers, the users would actually communicate through natural language to the services that the companies provide, and or use it as an assistant. And this is all about the foundation models and LLMs for the time being.
Thanks a lot, Haris. So let me kind of skip the next one, because I believe that we have already touched upon it, and I think with the moderation power, I think there is a more interesting question in the chat. So I think we've touched upon automated decision making versus human oversight. So I would say that the gist out of our discussion would be kind of mixed. So some automated decision making with some human oversight. But I would like to substitute this question with a question by Alexandros, who asks whether you believe that LLMs will have logical reasoning in the future, which I guess what you will say now is speculation, like Matina said in the beginning. But yeah, I mean, I guess the question is mostly to what extent will LLMs have logical reasoning? And Pavlos.
Yeah, I think smarter people than me, Lakun, I think kind of answered that question. I don't think that's going to happen.
You never know. I mean,
I agree with him, with Lakun, that I don't think that's going to happen, because we don't, like, an LLM doesn't have the, doesn't know about how the world works, basic stuff. For example, the LLM doesn't know about, cultural differences, how, specific gestures, how are interpreted.
Can learn all that?
Potentially, yeah. I don't know if if LLMs, like attention neural nets can really learn that. But the potential will be, kind of new neural network architectures that could learn that. But, it's all about also planning, because reasoning requires planning, checking some facts. It's a very, very complex chain of thought. So I think that with the current technology, I don't think we're going to go far. We can, maybe solve very basic reasoning problems, but I think, we're not going to go far. And I see that, LLMs will power specific vertical cases way faster, better, and soon in a cost-efficient way, as the models become, smaller and smaller. Yeah, that's my take. Because, essentially LLMs is just, a next word predictors, right? Nothing else. And then, you predict the next word, and then given that word, you try to predict the next one, and then given the two previous ones, the next one, etc. Right? So there is lots of work that needs to happen to enable really human level reasoning.
Before passing the mic to Matina and Haris, I would like to stay a bit on your last line here. You said that basically the LLM is the next word predictor, and I think, and totally agree, and I think that this is really important to really understand what an LLM is. I had a friend of mine, really high level on the finance chain of a big company here in Greece. He has been using the ChatGPT, the free version, and he said, "I'm not using Google anymore. I'm just asking the ChatGPT things." And he's not into engineering. He doesn't really know how it works. And I asked him, do you know what this is? Do you know what it does? And his reply was, it searches the web, right? And I said, no, it doesn't. It doesn't search the web. It just generates, it just outputs word after word. And the final output is so good that you believe it searched the web for you, which is entirely not true. So I urged him not to, and everybody, by the way, from the audience, please don't trust LLMs for serious stuff. I mean, don't take medical advice. It has a high chance of being correct, but it's the next word predictor, like Pavlos said, in its essence. The second thing I would like to comment on your answer, Pavlos, and maybe feed the Matina's and Harris' answer to the question, was that I have recently been watching, is it an Apple TV series called The Foundation, based on an Isaac Asimov's novel from the 50s, I think, 60s, something like that. So the series deals with a world in year 15,000 something, where robots have feelings and robots have learned how to have feelings. Don't know if I would recommend the movie, but since you said the series, but since you said it doesn't really know how the world works, my take on that is I'm not so sure. It doesn't know now, but with the right training, Matina, can it learn and have reasoning or not?
So one of the major issues that that we have seen is that they are very based on words in an environment where you mentioned earlier, it's mostly like a mini summarization task. And we have seen that it struggles, this kind of systems, the LLMs struggle whenever you are inserting into a problem mathematics, which is it's very peculiar for someone outside of these models and how they work, because they're like, oh, this is machine learning, this is AI. It should be amazing with numerical tasks. And it actually sucks. So one of the things is that it's really at a step where it struggles to understand and provide conclusions that they have the input of mathematics and numerical data there. And lots of our systems, lots of how the world works, lots of how the human brain works as well, have this notion of mathematics. So it's very, very weird that right now they can't deal with that, because again, it's mostly a summarization task. Now, about the notion of teach them in terms of something like feelings, or teach them to give you an answer that somehow has the feeling there. There are the communities of the neurodivergent people, for example, that they have this kind of a certain feeling. Sometimes they cannot express it in the same manner as a neurotypical human being. So we're talking about two human beings that they express their feelings, their thoughts in a very, very different manner. But most of the humanity takes us as a de facto that the expression of feelings and the expression of how human brain works, it's how the neurotypical person works. So basically, yeah, I think going now and talking about AI on producing this kind of things, it's like out of this world for now, at least. I don't know if this answers the question.
Yeah. The show deals with 15,000, with the year 15,000, not the year 2000. So yeah, I get that all the answers are for the next like 10 years or 20. Another question that came up in the comments that's interesting right now, Harris, is why cannot AI detect fake profiles in social networks? Can't it? I think it can, to some extent. I think it can, but yeah.
Yeah, as you said, to some extent, yes. But we don't have a global solution that can so that machines can take over this task for the time being. So a lot of manual effort is still needed.
But it has become better, right? So
yeah, I mean, it's becoming better. Yeah, definitely.
And what about what we were discussing with Pavlos and Matina? Logical reasoning and LLMs. Anytime soon? Do you see this happening?
Yeah, this is an area where research blossoms, actually. So a lot of things are happening there. So yes, large language models are next word prediction or next sentence prediction or missing word prediction. But at the same time, we can do. It is amazing of how many things we can do with the current technology. Beyond that, there is a lot of research in all these aspects, like reasoning, like causality, for example, causal AI. There are a lot of things, a lot of good technologies and good packages in causal AI, in planning and control. So these are areas that we will see a lot of things in the coming future, in the coming decade. The second thing is that we do know that autoregressive models, with autoregressive models, we have hit a ceiling. So we are exploring new paradigms, new architectures. The same applies with the transformer. We need to challenge the transformer architecture, though it has a lot of merits. It has a lot of good features. And with the industry putting some very well advanced engineering tricks, it is the mainstream here today. But we need to challenge it if we're going to go far beyond the current capacity of what LLMs can do. Another area is about multimodality. Are based on text. The text is it has some idiosyncratic characteristics, like, for example, it has a good compression, and we can come up with very good representations of concepts. And this is one of the success stories in LLMs. But what happens with video or images? If we transfer the same technology to images or videos, we see that the performance degrades. So something else is needed here, and how to encode this the experiential data that we as humans have is missing from the current technology, and we need to work on this. So there are many interesting research endeavors on those aspects. Emotional intelligence, I do believe that emotions are numerical representations. So if we go back to the 50s in the last century, and we see some categorical representations of emotions, I think that the emotions are enumerated. And so the representations that we may have as humans, the emotional intelligence will come, and easily I see that there is a good fit with the representation models and the numerical representations that we currently have. We have a good, actually, Greek startup in emotional intelligence, which is very active in the United States, Behavioral Signals, that does a lot of nice things about emotions. So the future is in front of us, and I encourage young people to work on these areas, because a lot of us are stuck on the same things that the big players are doing, and they are doing better than us. So there is plenty of space to do many things in AI, apart from the engineering and crafting of big LLMs.
Thanks a lot, Harris. A lot of food for thought. I will be kind of wrapping everything up with two things. First of all, the last comment says, if it learns the world from our history, we don't have a nice history to teach. Again, pessimistic. But on the other hand, I would like to say that, all these questions on what can be achieved or not mostly lie on the ability of the human brain. And I don't think that like 1,000 years ago, people believed that we would be where we are at right now. So yeah, like Harry said, young people should work on that, and probably with some more ethics in mind. It's not all about money. There is some concerns about money that Matina listed. Thanks, everyone. I hope it was an interesting discussion. Thanks, Harris. Thanks, Pavlos from the rainy London. Thanks, Matina. Thanks, the audience. Thanks, Kariera, for offering us the opportunity to chat here today. Have a good night.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Bye-bye.